Hi friends, we are going to discuss UPSC 2018 mains examination paper GS2. I am not going to do an elaborate discussion of all the answers. I am going to selectively discuss two questions because I want to give an in-depth analysis of how to approach the questions. So that you can get an idea of how to frame the answers accordingly. So I have taken two questions here. The first question is question number 5, which speaks about CAG. The CAG has a very vital role to play. Explain how this is reflected in the method and terms of his appointment as well as the range of powers he can exercise. So this question is basically about the Comptroller and Auditor General of India. This question you have to structure first. So first start with the introduction. In the introduction, write about the office of CAG. Give a brief introduction. Write about the significance of CAG. Don't give a very lengthy introduction because this question they have asked for 150 words. So you have to write for around 1.5 pages. So don't write a very lengthy introduction. Then go into the body of the answer. In the body of answer, you have to break the question. If you look at the question, they have asked you to analyze about the terms of his office and his appointment. So write about that. And secondly, they have asked about the powers which he can exercise. So within the body of the answer, you have to address these two aspects which they have asked in the question. And at the end, in the conclusion, you can give your own views or opinion. So this is how we are going to structure this question, this answer. So now let's go into the answer. So start with the introduction. In the introduction, write about the significance of CAG in a crisp manner. You can start with this. Dr. B.R. Ambedkar himself has stated that the office of CAG is the most important officer under the Constitution of India because it is only through him that the accountability of the executive to the people is ensured. Secondly, CAG is the guardian of the public purse. He is the one who ensures that the tax money, the money of the people is spent in the right manner. So this is basically the significance of the office of CAG. No need to list all the articles which fall under the office and the authority of CAG. So don't stack the answer with facts and figures. Secondly, go into the body of the answer. In the body of the answer, first we are going to address about his term of office and appointment. As already seen, the CAG is a very important office under the Constitution. Therefore, he has been given a very high importance. He is given the security of office. He can stay in office for 6 years or until he reaches the age of 65 years of age. He is appointed by the president, but he cannot be removed as per the whims and fancies of the president. There is a separate removal procedure for the CAG, which is similar to that of the Supreme Court judge or a High Court judge. So basically, he is provided the security of office. Secondly, write about the authority which he can exercise. If you compare Indian CAG with the British CAG, the British Comptroller and Auditor General he is both a controller of the public purse as well as an auditor, which means that even if the government wants to draw money and spend, they have to get permission from the CAG. But in case of the Indian CAG, he is not a controller. Even though we are calling him as a controller, he is not a controller. The government need not ask the approval of the CAG for drawing the money. The role of CAG comes only at the stage of audit, which means only after the money has already been spent, the CAG will check whether it has been spent properly. He will compare the revenue, whether it is spent for the right purpose or not. And then, speaking of the range of powers, the CAG has been given the power to audit certain things. He audits the consolidated fund of the center and the consolidated fund of the states. He audits the various government corporation, PSUs, and also any other entity which has been significantly financed by the government. So write about that. For example, he has been given the authority to audit various social welfare scheme projects also. For example, NREGA scheme. So write about that. And then the important part is the authority of CAG. He has two powers. One is he does an audit that is called as a regulatory audit, which is a normal audit. Regulatory audit, he will check whether the money is spent for the right purpose. He will compare the amount that is spent, and he will check whether it is spent for the right purpose. So this is the regulatory audit, which is the normal audit which he does. Secondly, he does a second type of audit that is called as proprietary audit. Proprietary means he will check about the usefulness of the expenditure. He will check whether the expenditure is done for the right purpose, whether the money has been spent for the proper scheme, whether the money has been misused or not. For example, you should be remembering the 2G spectrum scam. This was pointed out by the CAG. So this is an example of a proprietary audit. So he does two kinds of audit, proprietary audit as well as the regulatory audit. Proprietary audit is not mandatory. He can either choose to do it or he can choose not to do it. But the regulatory audit is compulsory for the Indian CAG. So this is regarding the powers and authority of the CAG. I have explained many things, but you have to write about all these in a concise and crisp manner. And at the end, if you look at the Indian CAG, even though the CAG audits most of the government corporation and government agencies, there are certain agencies which are outside the purview of the CAG. For example, regulatory institutions such as RBI and also certain financial institutions such as LIC, etc. They are out of the purview of CAG, which means that the CAG does not do audit for these institutions. So this has been pointed out by many experts. So they want institutions like RBI, LIC also to be audited by CAG. The reason is public money is involved in these institutions also. So there is chance of misdoings and mismanagement in these agencies also. So these are all certain criticisms about the CAG. So you have to write about these as well. And at the end, you can give your opinion. You can either give or you can choose not to. But if you give a conclusion, it will be better. In the conclusion, don't repeat the same points which I have mentioned in the body of the answer. You should give your own unique points. For example, you can say that even though the CAG is a very important office, it is observed that at sometimes the CAG is seen favoring certain governments, especially the ruling government. Because it is seen that after his term of office is over, generally the CAG is favored in other ways by the ruling party. So we should ensure that the CAG does not behave in a biased manner. He should not favor either the ruling party or the opposition party. So he should maintain the dignity of his office, the dignity and the prestige, the autonomy of the office. So you can write that as one of your opinion in the at the end. And there is also an opinion that the CAG must not be a single man institution. So there is a recommendation, or there is an opinion that the CAG must be made a multi-member body also, so that there can be more accountability and transparency in future. So you can write about all this stuff at the end. Like I said, no need to write all the points which I have mentioned. You have to brush on all these issues, write in a very crisp manner. So if you write like this, you will get very good points. Second question, this comes under the second division, 250 word question. How far do you agree with the view that tribunals curtail the jurisdiction of ordinary courts? In view of the above, discuss the constitutional validity and competency of tribunals in India. So this question is about tribunals. Tribunals are quasi-judicial bodies. They are basically like courts. So this question is about the tribunals in India. Once again, we are going to break the question. In the first part, they are asking whether tribunals actually undermine the jurisdiction of ordinary courts, whether tribunals are actually undermining the role of full-time courts like high courts and other court. Secondly, they are asking about the constitutional validity and competency of tribunals in India. So you have to break the question like this, and you will have to write the answer. In the introduction, write a brief about tribunals. What is meant by a tribunal? In the body of the answer, you have to critically analyze about the different aspects which they are asking. How tribunals are undermining the role of ordinary courts, whether they have validity under the constitution, and whether they have the competence. So you have to critically analyze all these in the body of the answer. And at the end, in the conclusion, you can give your own views. Now, let's go into the answer. In the introduction, write about what a tribunal is. Basically, tribunal is a judicial body, but it is not a full-term judicial body. It can be best called a quasi-judicial body. So quasi-judicial body is a body which actually functions like a court. It is like a court, but it is not a full-time court. Apart from judicial functions, it is entrusted with other function also. You can take the example of National Green Tribunal. National Green Tribunal, it is a court. It is a form of court. But apart from judicial duties, it is having other duties also. For example, National Green Tribunal is responsible for protecting environment. If a certain project is deemed to affect the environment, such a case will be heard by the National Green Tribunal. So this is an example of a tribunal in India. Similarly, we have tribunal for other matters also. We have administrative tribunals, we have other industrial tribunals, etc. So basically, write about tribunal. And you can just brush about the important articles. Write about Article 323, which speaks about tribunals in India. And then go to the body of the answer. In the body of the answer, first you have to address about the constitutional validity, and secondly you have to write about the competency of tribunals in India. Generally, looking at the structure of tribunals in India, if you look at tribunals in India, if you look at the tribunals, in most tribunals, they contain judicial members as well as non-judicial members. Non-judicial members are generally experts in their own domain, like environment, human rights, etc. So, whether the constitution has laid down a separate procedure for selection of these members, so that is a bigger question. So, there is no specific procedure of how to select these members, how a tribunal should be constituted, what should be the qualification of the members, what should be the removal procedure for such members. So there is no specifically laid constitutional principle for the tribunals in India. So this itself is a bigger question. Secondly, competence of tribunals. As we have already seen, tribunals is only a quasi-judicial body. For example, we have tribunals that handle intellectual property rights and other issues also. Whether they really have the competence to handle such cases, that is a bigger question. Whether they have the required domain experts to handle such cases, that is a bigger issue in India. In most of the cases, the judgment of tribunals, what happens is that they come as appeal to higher courts such as High Courts and Supreme Court. You can take the example of interstate river water dispute tribunals in India. This is a burning issue. So many tribunals have been set up for resolving interstate water disputes in India. Kaveri River Tribunal, Godavari River Tribunal, Krishna River Tribunal. These tribunals, they have expert members. And the constitutional specifically says that the award or the final verdict of these tribunals is final. But the final award from these tribunals, even after they are announced, once again dispute arises. Through special leave petition, these cases are brought again, the judgment is brought like an appeal to the higher court such as Supreme Court. Once again, this is a bigger issue. The tribunal itself has been set up to handle specific cases for specialized issues. So, if you are going to take the decision of the tribunal again for appeal to higher court such as Supreme Court, so what is the use of setting up these tribunals in the first place? So that is a bigger issue here. So these are all various issues that comes under the competence and the overreach of tribunals in India. So you will have to write about all these under this. In the conclusion, at the end you can give your own view. Don't repeat the same point mentioned in the body of the answer. Please give your own opinion. You can say that the parliament can probably specify the rules for structure and the composition of various tribunals in India. You can speak about that. You can say that we should have a proper accountability mechanism for tribunals. You can say that the efficiency of tribunals itself has to be improved in India. So you can give your own points in the end.